Hello, everyone. We're starting the event right now, so can we please have everyone sitting down? I just wanted to start off by thanking all of you here today for taking time out of your busy Friday to come spend your time here with us. We have an exciting event planned for tonight with Dr. Nishith Desai, Dr. Mihir Park, and Dr. Vaibhav Park, along with our amazing partners at TiE, Mr. Ram Viswanathan and Mr. Vladimir Franceschi. We will start tonight off with a fireside chat and some Q&A at the end. Feel free to grab some refreshments in the back, and if you need to use the restroom, it is outside the door and to the right. And last but not least, I would like to thank Mr. Adi from WorldLink and the Sheraton who has graciously hosted us here. So now I will hand it over to Mr. Ram Viswanathan.
Thank you very much for being here today. Promise to be an exciting session. Before we get into the details of today's discussion, I think Mr. Desai wants to say a few words.
Okay, thank you so much. On a Friday evening, I know, meeting a boring lawyer, all that you can do is to have some nice conversation. And let me just give you a little background about myself and so you have some context where I'm coming from and why we are getting together. Okay. My name is Nishith Desai. I'm an international lawyer specializing in globalization, international tax, and strategic work related to law. You must be wondering what about strategy and law. In fact, first thing I want to tell you is that law, on the one hand, could be constrained. On the other hand, it could be a strategic asset to create value in a company. The biggest value creators today, or at least some of the biggest value creators today, have played in the gray areas of law. You are already aware that it's not something new. Last century, people have exploited gray areas in law. The difference that new generation entrepreneurs bring to the table is that, and you will have a lot of questions, you are dealing with India, but even in any other part of the world also, if you have any questions or other kind of stuff, I'll be happy to take them. And with those words, maybe I can come give you the microphone. But once a lawyer is given microphone, doesn't want to give up.
Thank you very much. So as you got a sense of what all topics we can potentially cover in a short time frame like we have today, we have a very wide range of topics. The technology innovation, disruption is being caused by technologies in yesteryears, and as we speak today, what's happening there and so on. Cross-border transactions, the impact of cross-border transactions, and the complexity of these cross-border transactions. There's so many areas we can touch on. So we're going to have a few themes that we'll walk through. And obviously, you heard from Nishith Desai, we have some brilliant legal minds in front of us today. Along with Ms. Desai, we have Vlad Franceschi, who's a good friend of mine and has his own illustrious background in terms of what he has done with startups, the technology landscape, investments across different geographies. Europe, a little bit in India, and of course the US. So if you could perhaps give a little introduction about yourself. I can't do justice to their biographies, so I'll let them speak to themselves.
Lawyers get paid by the hour, so the microphone be okay. I'm Vladimir, Franceschi. I'm originally from, with a name like that, from Europe. We used to be Yugoslavia. I'm half Croatian, half Serbian, 7 different countries now. And then came to the US just in time to be at law school at Stanford during the dot-com bubble. Before that, I was very briefly at Sony, a Japanese company in engineering and manufacturing strategic planning in California, and got exposed to technology, got exposed to markets, got exposed to business, really liked it, and decided that I wanted to do business law. I was fortunate that at that time you could become a startup lawyer and just entirely have clients who were startups or investors. That was a long time ago, been 20 years or so. Worked at big law firms that shouldn't mean anything to you, except the lawyers. And I would say that I'm about 90% of the time a lawyer for startups, so teams from formation, from idea to exit, and then about 10% of the time for investors, angel investors or venture capital firms. I just find the company building process more interesting, so I tend to be on that side. And my bottom line job is to be general counsel before they have the need to hire one full time. So I try to be a generalist and help him be the first point of contact for any legal issue that comes up. And I'm a corporate securities lawyer mostly, so that give people forewarning, which means that I'm not a IP licensing or an IP attorney. I do it because you need to know it, but I can bring a perspective from that young company, business, operating in an environment situation.
You're going to have to do a little bit of a musical chair here in terms of passing the mics back and forth. Hopefully you all can hear all of us clearly. All right, so we're going to delve right into the meat of the discussion today. In terms of the technology landscape over time and the legal implications of all this technology changes, the disruption that's being caused, and what are specifically some unique legal challenges that we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. So perhaps you can get started with.
Yeah, sure. First of all, let's understand how the role of a lawyer is going to undergo change. At one time, it was about compliance. It's all automated now. Next 5-7 years, we expect even the agreements, negotiation to some extent will be covered by smart contracts or blockchain driven. So that role is also diluting. Options, how to exercise those options, Now, I'm not going to stock option, I'm talking about the option that you have to deal with the agreements or otherwise. So lawyers role will be to handhold, but lot of things that we see are of a repetitive nature would all be automated. And that's how I look at the role.
So you made a key point there in terms of the preparedness that the industry has with the changes that are coming. I want to draw some comparisons between the pace and scale of change in previous decades. Information revolution, we are probably going to the third or fourth phase of it. And the pace of change is astounding. The things are happening at a much faster pace now. Are the legal frameworks keeping up? Is it harder? Is it easier? What is your take, Vlad? What do you think?
They will never keep up, right? Because the scenario has to be presented before the rules developed. They're lagging, and they're also, I would just add to what was said that, and this is from the US perspective.
Seriously concerned about the privacy. We all talk about it, but I think the time has come to do something about it. And that is why privacy becomes very, very critical. So, sorry for my interruption.
Yeah, no, it's raising a lot of questions in my mind, and we're going to take a slight segue into cross-border. So obviously you're all experts in cross-border transactions, and they have taken a life of their own in terms of, again, the size and scale of these cross-border transaction complexities. In the previous discussion we had, we talked about the changing landscape where we need to keep in mind the universality of some of these concepts that transcend borders, and how nation states probably have worked together in creating laws and regulations that apply uniformly across borders. So let me ask, in general, cross-border transaction-wise, what is the state of the whole phenomenon of cross-border transactions, their complexities, and specifically in India and Asia that you can address, and perhaps in Europe that perhaps you can talk to that?
I think cross-border, I think the whole world, we talked about it, borderless world some years ago. Actually, we are moving towards that. Although in conversation, we become more insular, more protective, more. But I think somewhere along the line, we'll have to think, and technology can play an extraordinary role in shaping the world that we want. And that's what I'm going on esoteric discussion. But
you touched on a lot of things there, which some of which I'm not going to go into at this point. But I did have an intriguing thought go through my mind as you were talking. We hear about code generators. I was watching Larry Ellison's keynote address at Oracle World yesterday. It's amazing. I don't know how he keeps going at 80 years old. It's full of wisdom and next generation, what is the technology able to do, and so on and so forth. But he talked about how a lot of the code in the application portfolio they have is being written by code generators now. So where I'm going with that is that conceivable to have laws be generated with the body of knowledge that exists out in the domain, public domain, and otherwise, are laws possible to be codified without a whole bunch of, I don't need to say that you guys are not needed, but I mean, you know what I'm going with this. You have any?
Yeah, for sure. Well, lawyers don't make laws, and politicians do, right? They happen to be mostly lawyers, but it's fortunately we're exempt. It's not our fault. Whatever the laws are. What I would say is that, of course, you could, like just conceptually, right? Like anything else, you could. But here, what can I say that's relevant about it? We have a whole, as was said.
Because otherwise in 1 minute time I finish what will I and I will go poor. Right? So I charge for liability and risk taking, I'm again reflecting on some of the thought, but it will be possible to draft legislation and even implement them, getting votes across, if we really come together and never say. And when we have netocracy, one of the most important things is it is not about democracy. So the decision-making process should be something like 60% of the decision should be by and large try to achieve consensus, 25-30% by majority, 10% minority wisdom, and 2 to 5% can be somebody at the top, because democracy and speed we need to combine together. Again, I'm sorry, I'm going.
No, all these are fascinating topics. As you were talking,
Friday evening, what else do you do, right?
So, AI, I've got only 150 questions on AI. Obviously, we can't touch all of that here. But let's park that for a second. I want to talk about responsible AI. There's a lot of discussion in the industry now. Governance, what is self-governance versus what can be expected from the market. But let's park that for a second. I want to go back to one of the points that was brought up. We talked a lot about privacy. And I want to combine two themes, the privacy issue and what's happening globally. Again, going back to what's happening in the US versus in India versus in Europe. There's a school of thought that feels that there is a greater advancement in Europe in some of these areas. GDPR, for example, there's no, to my knowledge, there's no version of GDPR here in the US. And likewise, India is making phenomenal progress with the TPDA, Data Privacy Protection Act. So, and when I was in India last time, when I went into some of the detail, I was astonished at the level of maturity that at least the thought processes. And where I'm going with this is the innovation to be expected from those geographies? Historically, US has been the leader of innovation, even in legal responses to technology, right? Are we seeing a shift? Is more innovation to be expected from Asia, India, perhaps Europe, and especially in these areas? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I would also like my colleagues to contribute here a little bit, but just to give a quick response to the whole thing. I have been looking at educational system all over the world. At one point of time, it was England, which had a lot of thought leaders. You don't know where it will hit you. So only win-win game is fair agreement. Okay, again, I'm not generalizing everything, but by and large, mindset should be win-win situation.
Yeah.
Yes. No, sorry, I asked you.
If you have 30 seconds.
Yeah, you want to do it now or can we wait for a couple of minutes? Because what I'm going to do, I just have two topics I want to finish. and then I want to open it up for the audience to ask questions. Obviously, there's the gaps and challenges which we touched on.
Yeah.
One of the recent challenges that we are dealing with here is you talked about regulation. Both of you talked about regulation, right? As most of us here in the room can attest to, we're all free market believers, and we believe that industry can self-regulate itself generally speaking. But the pace with which, especially things that are happening, is causing concern, and there's a lot of distrust in the public about big tech, especially. And there's a lot of active discussions about what needs to be done from a governance standpoint, the regulation standpoint. So I would like to understand your points of view on is the market capable enough, mature enough to self-regulate itself, or do we need a government body to put some guardrails?
You want me to?
Both of you, I want to hear from both of you.
Sure,
I know, like that.
I'll just give you my point of view on things. The trouble we're in today, when it comes to privacy, just using this example, is that we let the technology mature before it got regulated, but because it's running into all of these other concerns, whether it's competition or privacy, it might get regulated early and in blunt ways that are not ideal.
Yeah, I wanted to have you respond to that, but also maybe with a specific reference to what the legal industry can do about it in terms of shaping, because governments, as we know, are slow to act, and I'm sure as visionaries in these areas, you obviously can provide a lot of input to that whole process, so I'm sure you have some thoughts on that.
Yeah, sure. I think we are practicing that almost every day. Every new breakthrough technology creates a regulatory gap. Government is not ready. Okay. And they do not even understand the seriousness of the technology when it begins to happen.
There was some art to it.
No.
Absolutely.
Can I ask Vladimir to make some presentation?
Yeah, so
Technologies. Horizon technologies. Can I ask Vladimir to?
sure, yeah, absolutely. Before that, can you ask the audience some questions? In the interest of time, I want to see if I can open up the floor for questions from the audience. Obviously, we covered a lot of ground here. Maybe I can start off with maybe prefacing that with saying we're all entrepreneurs here, building businesses, and expecting certain legal frameworks to be available for us, and make it easy for us to build businesses. Okay, we want to understand how the legal system works and how to navigate through all this with as much ease as possible. But what is your advice to entrepreneurs here in terms of what can they expect from the legal system and what's coming in the future? And then we can open it up for others.
I think depends on the business you are in, but legal system should be a facilitator and container of the bad actors. Okay, so
The output from ChatGPT is meaningless if you don't have the right prompt. So the prompt that it provides actually provides a lot of the context. But I think your point is well taken. Schools are struggling. They don't know how to deal with it. I think his question is,
My point
as
is,
lawyers, we
there is
have
a
some
disconnect
advice to
between
schools,
the
school districts,
technology and academia.
high
and
schools,
lawyers,
high schools,
high school,
middle
college.
schools. Okay.
Chetan Bhagat from Nishith Desai.
yeah,
Is that plagiarism?
is able to,
The Three Idiots.
yeah. See, it has to be done so that people are aware that these are the risks. Then you want to go ahead with that. It's one thing. But anyway, we can go on discussing. Sorry
Yeah.
for taking
No, that's
your
fine.
valuable time.
No. We can go on and on. There's so many topics that we can discuss ad infinitum. But we are talking about a lot of questions have opened up again. What is IP? What is IP in the new world? That's very foundational in the tech world. What is the role of society? What is the role of governments? What is the nature of intelligence? I can get philosophical, but we obviously don't have, we don't have the right forum for that and time. But very intriguing, very fascinating. We covered a lot of ground. We talked about the legal landscape, technology disruption, cross-border transactions, and as far as the inevitable topic of AI, which has to come to every discussion these days. How many of you have seen this movie called Afraid that came recently over the Labor Day weekend? I don't think it made a big splash in the box office, but good film. If you get a chance, do see it. It talks about, I thought it was one of those sci-fi movies, and it is a little bit of sci-fi, but some of the things that it talks about makes you wonder, is this, technology-wise, it's possible, some of the things that they talk about in the movie. So the AI genie is out of the box. We can't do anything about it. It's already out of the box. The question is, what do we do about it? What can we do about it? What is in our control? What can we do about it? At the very least, we have these discussions, debates, raise the level of awareness amongst us as technology entrepreneurs or just people in society, legal scholars, governments, so that collectively, hopefully, we can see where this is all headed, make some sense out of it, and ultimately end up and result in a better society. I don't know what else to say. So thank you very much. Wonderful. And thank you, Brad.
If I may just add a point here, 2 points simply.
Sure.
One, I think Adi asked a question about arbitration and all that.
Yes.
And I've written a paper on justice is the speed of thought without injustice.
Without?
Just injustice. Justice is the speed of thought that is needed, but without it, the justice hurried is justice buried. So how can we use technology to meet out? For example, as Vaibhav mentioned, small cases, we'll also get into bigger cases. Small cases today, if you're speeding, offense, right? Camera takes a picture, sends you evidence, and finds you already, right? So it's a
Right, if these are going to be rules of the road, and we should have a say in it. So first place to understanding what it is, and then to whatever extent anybody's motivated, absolutely, form a group and advocate, right? Advocate for your point of view on how things should be, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.